The first time I read Elon Musk's name was in Peter Thiel's book 0 to 1. That was in 2014. Back then, not everyone in the world knew who Elon was. Sure, he was already a billionaire, already famous by conventional standards, but he was far from the world's richest person, nor the most followed account on Twitter. Today, everyone knows Elon Musk, but few people. 1. Never. I don't ever give up. Never. I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated. For my part, I will never give up. Possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. A source of strength. That's really not how I think about things. For me, it's simply this is something that is important to get done, and we should just keep doing it or die trying. I don't need a source of strength. Quitting is not in my nature, and I don't care about optimism or pessimism. FG that we're gonna get it. Demo guys are the magicians of the 21st century. 3. Mars would just be the greatest adventure ever, and very exciting. And I think we need things in life that are exciting and inspiring. It can't just be about solving some awful problem. There have to be reasons to get up in the morning. Take risks now. Do something bold. You won't regret it. When something is important enough, you do it even if they aren't. 4. When I was a little kid, I was really scared of the dark. But then I came to understand, okay, dark just means the absence of photons in the visible wavelengths. 400 to 700 nanometers. Then I thought, well, it's really silly to be afraid of a lack of photons. Then I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore after that. 5. I feel fear quite strongly. It's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear. People shouldn't think, I feel fear about this, and therefore I shouldn't do it. It's normal to feel fear. There'd have to be something mentally wrong with you if you didn't feel fear. 6. I think it's very difficult to start companies and quite painful. There's a friend of mine who's got a good phrase for doing a startup. It's like eating glass and staring into the abyss. If you're sort of wired to do it, then you should do it, but not otherwise. If you need inspiring words, don't do it. 7. Well, I do think there's a good framework for thinking. It is physics, you know, the sort of first principles reasoning. What I mean by that is boil things down to their fundamental truths and reason up from there, as opposed to reasoning by analogy. Through most of our life, we get through life by reasoning by analogy, which essentially means copying what other people do with slight variations. And you have to do that. 8. If somebody is doing something that is useful to the rest of society, I think that's a good thing. It doesn't have to change the world. If you make something that has high value to people, and frankly, even if it's a little game or, some improvement in photo sharing, if it has a small amount of good for a large number of people, I think that's fine. Having something that makes a big difference, but 9. I think most people can learn a lot more than they think they can. They sell themselves short without trying. One bit of advice: it is important to view knowledge as sort of a semantic tree. Make sure you understand the fundamental principles, i.e., the trunk and big branches, before you get into the leaves details, or there is nothing for them to hang on to. 11. It's very important to actively seek out and listen very carefully to negative feedback. This is something that people tend to avoid because it's painful, but I think this is a very common mistake. To not actively seek out and listen to negative feedback. When friends get a product, I say, look, don't tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like, because otherwise your friend is not going to tell you what he doesn't like. You read. 12. I think it's very important to have a feedback loop where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better. I think that's the single best piece of advice. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better and questioning yourself. 13. I read a quote from Arthur C. Clarke which said that a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And that's really true. If you go back, say 300 years, the things we take for granted today would be burned at the stake for being able to fly. That's crazy. Being able to see over long distances, being able to communicate, having effectively with the internet a group mind of sorts, and having access to all the world's information instantly. 14. A good sign as to whether there's free speech is someone you don't like allowed to say something you don't like. If that is the case, then we have free speech. And it's damn annoying when someone you don't like says something you don't like. But that is a sign of a healthy, functioning free speech situation. 15. One of the really tough things is figuring out what questions to ask. Once you figure out the question, then the answer is relatively easy. I came to the conclusion that really we should aspire to increase the scope and scale of human consciousness in order to better understand what questions to ask. The only thing that makes sense to do is strive for greater collective enlightenment. 16. Always take the position that you are to some degree wrong and your goal is to be less wrong over time. One of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You want something to be true even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. So just